Hi, I'm Mike and welcome to the Snap UK podcast, the UK's best amateur podcast about the world of professional football. The first pre-season games have been and gone, giving us actual action, sort of, to discuss. Squads are taking shape, rookies are learning the ropes, and still no one knows for sure who's calling plays in New England. Our squad is playing away from home again this week. We're at the lab. Say hello, John and Gary.
Hello.
Hello.
Greetings, gentlemen. Starting the season on the physically unable to perform list is Jim, taking a much-deserved break in Ireland. He's been located on the Irish coast at Inch Beach, which I gather is a nudist beach for those hard of hanging.
I'd have thought 4th and Inches might have been at Inch Beach.
You'd think, but no, 4th and Inches was a game-time decision, and he's benched himself for the old personal circumstances, which I assume is clean up on aisle 2. The second part of today's show will focus on the fantasy football, or as I like to call it the graveyard of my success. But before that, actual news. Last week's pre-season games threw us some discussion points, which is great. So let's start off at the Jets. We touched on Mekhi Becton's season-ending knee injury last week. The last thing that the Jets needed after that was Zach Wilson having trouble with his bone.
Hey.
Yeah, thank you. 2 to 4 weeks he's slated to miss. He actually had surgery today and has a shot to make week 1. So, hardly catastrophic, but what does this do for the much-needed confidence and coordination? Coordination? It's not a good way, is it? Much-needed confidence and coordination with his pass catchers at the Jets. And is Joe Flacco able to step up if Wilson can't go? Because last season, Flacco ran this offense far better than Wilson. Not a surprise, Wilson was a rookie, but Flacco is now a 54-year-old former Super Bowl winner.
With a broken back.
Does he actually represent a better early season chance for the Jets to win some games, or do they need Wilson back to get this thing operating properly?
I think Salah's probably going to just be quite happy with Flacco if it's only going to be for a few weeks. And then actually there won't be an initial kind of any craze about how Wilson's playing at the start of the season. And I know their first game of the season is against the Ravens, so that's quite a spicy Joe Flacco game anyway. But
he'd get destroyed.
but it probably doesn't hurt Wilson missing 1 or 2 games.
No.
I don't think.
I
Because
agree.
then if he comes in off the back of a couple of bad results, if he shows a level of improvement to that, then you start to hear some good news stories about Wilson. The only thing I'd be a little bit concerned about kind of with Wilson is that he hurt his right knee last year when he was out. So
Yeah.
that's two knee injuries in 6 months, and
it wasn't.
I don't know what they've had to do to his meniscus. If they've had to remove it, that's
They've repaired it, I believe. But it was a silly play that he got injured on.
similar like Jimmy G's, wasn't it?
Very similar, same play caller, by the way. And that led us to then see calls for should the Jets be trading for Jimmy G. Now, the simple answer is no, because Wilson's not out for an extended period of time. But this is because Jimmy G's still the big name on the roundabout. Everyone's looking, where's he going to end up? It would be a massive backward step for the Jets to acquire Jimmy G. Massive salary, not going to be a long-term investment. So
I think if Wilson had been out for the season, because there's so much good news about the work that the Jets had done, then I think Jimmy G was a no-brainer.
Yeah.
But if Wilson's coming back and they believe he's the future or can be the future, then Jimmy G is not. You just got to ride out 2 or 3 games. So I think when people saw it and they saw it was a bad knee, they were like, well, that could be a season ender. So if Salah wants to keep his job, he's going to go and get his mate Jimmy.
Don't forget they've got the one-game wonder Mike White as well.
Oh, God,
Like the reverse Nate Peterman. One amazing game and then disappears.
So much dross. No one's going to get Jimmy G unless the injury is massive or he gets released. And
we will release him.
And he will get released.
We won't take that salary hit.
It's the Sam Bradford effect. The year he ended up playing at the Vikings was because Teddy Bridgewater got injured so late and was out for the year that otherwise the Eagles would have just released Bradford the next week.
Yeah.
But the Vikings couldn't risk him not being available. And that's what will happen for the Niners. Either someone is catastrophically injured or he'll get released.
There's plenty of teams that are one injury away from a disaster at quarterback. The Saints, the Jets, the Seahawks.
The Saints have got Andy Dalton as backup.
the Redskins,
The who now, sorry?
I don't care.
The Commanders. We're not allowed to call them that anymore.
I don't care.
how are the Seahawks a quarterback away from a disaster. They're in a disaster.
Well,
apparently they're big on Geno, so...
let's talk about that then, because did anyone see Drew Lock's sack fumble to blow the preseason opener?
Apparently Pete Carroll was pissed.
Pete Carroll was pissed. He basically then said Geno Smith could have been 10 of 10 and was brilliant, and Drew Lock was okay, was his press conference. He is not going to start Drew Lock. Drew Lock was simply there as a make weight in the transfer for Wilson. Geno Smith has this starting role sewn up because he no longer makes the silly mistakes. It's not flashy, it's 6-yard passes, but that's what he did last season, and he won 2 of his 4 starts or whatever it was.
Pete Carroll just wants to keep a game really tight and
run
win
the ball,
like 9-3.
Yeah.
Like as if it's still 1948 when he first started playing.
It's true.
Like,
If he
the
turned up,
glory days.
you could see him in a leather cap.
Yeah.
It's
Bomber jacket.
exactly fucking. Oh, yeah, it's awful. And
But in all honesty, I don't think anyone at this table, or the 2 that are absent, believe that this team wins more games with Drew Lock than Geno Smith.
No chance.
It's I would say at the most, it's a 6-win team with Geno Smith, and it's probably a 4-win team with Drew Lock.
Tough division.
Yeah.
Really tough.
Yeah, of
Really
course. But the team is bad as well.
the team is bad, but they have 2 excellent receivers.
Yes.
And the fact that DK signed a new contract this year when he's going to have
They might have to use him
junk thrown at him.
They might have to use him as a wide back. I think he could play as a wide back.
Yeah, he probably could. But the question still remains, why have they not upgraded? They had the draft and free agency. So what is the plan? Because the plan isn't Geno Smith. That's this year's plan.
You don't think Pete Carroll's in win now mode?
I think he is.
I think
win now mode.
I think he thinks he is.
He thinks he is. Before one, he doesn't have the years available to him to go through a rebuild.
Doesn't have 2 years? It's
No.
breaking news. Pete Carroll's gone in 2 years.
But you can do a rebuild in 2
in 2
years.
years.
But
Why is it taking the Giants 7?
I mean, it's a fair question.
we're on our 4th rebuild. That's why. But not a joke, sadly. But yeah,
It was just too easy.
if you look, the way that the Seahawks drafted, they believe they're in win now.
They believe they can win with what they've got. No one else does.
No.
But I didn't understand the strategy around the quarterback because they didn't acquire a young one either.
No.
So
Unless they think Geno can tide us by until the end of the season, in which case we go out and we acquire one in the draft, or
maybe.
a
But wouldn't you want to sit one behind Geno Smith? That surely would have been the sensible move. Now, again, we've heard the talk of Jimmy G to the Seahawks. They could get him for nothing. Now, if they get him for nothing, fair enough. But I don't think Jimmy G makes a difference on this team anyway. He doesn't elevate players enough to make this team better.
No, but I think
he's better than Geno Smith.
He's better than what they've got.
I think Geno Smith is slightly more mobile than Jimmy G, which he's going to need to be behind that fucking O-line. Because
I think anybody that's trying to suggest that Geno Smith is better than Jimmy G.
I'm not saying, but I'm just saying.
I understand where you're coming from.
Jimmy G has been fine behind Trent Williams and a half
he
decent
went to
O-line.
the Super Bowl without Trent Williams.
He still had a fucking decent O-line.
The O-line was good.
It was okay.
And
It was better than the Seahawks have got.
Yes.
Yes. All right, okay.
the best O linemen at the Seahawks have all left. Like one of them just joined the fucking Jets to replace Mickey Becton, and great, but he is gonna be scrambling for his fucking life. And
He pulled it off last year, to be fair. He played really well in most of the game time that he replaced Russell Wilson. No one expected him to win any games with Geno Smith. And he did fine. He's clearly grown up. He's not talented, but he's now an experienced quarterback who can...
He knows the system,
Yeah.
doesn't he? Been there, 2 years?
No, longer than that. 3 or 4 years.
Right,
Yeah, as a backup.
So he knows the system very well. He knows what
He
Pete
clearly
Carroll
has
wants.
Pete Carroll's ear, and
he's
that's
got,
good.
He's got Tyler Lockett and he's got DK Metcalf, which helps.
Have they
Now-
got any running backs, though?
Well, they drafted Kenneth Walker.
Kenneth
They
Walker.
drafted Rashard Penny finally turned up.
Because Carson's retired.
Carson's retired. It'll be Rashard Penny and Kenneth Walker.
Yeah.
Hopefully for them, Walker will be as good as he's supposed to be. I think there's a very good chance that he is. My final thought on their quarterback situation is, and this sprang to me the other day, and I really hope it's not the case, but it feels like they're looking at the Panthers and waiting to see whether Sam Darnold gets cut. Because I think Pete Carroll would think, I can turn Sam Darnold into a winner. That's the sort of Pete Carroll, I can rah-rah you into being a better player than you are.
I think and me and Jim have been, big supporters of Sam Darnold all the way through, and obviously went to college near San Francisco, didn't he? So he was the big hope coming through, and he looked great in college, but I don't think he'll get another shot after this.
I think he'll kick around as a backup.
He'll kick around. If Josh Rosen's still around, Sam
but
Darnold.
that's what I mean. Like, but that's. I
His
don't
starting
think
days
you're
are
going
over.
to see another coach hang their hat on Sam Darnold.
Pete Carroll's the only one I could think of, and that was my point. Like, it looks like a Pete Carroll move to me.
Yeah.
If he gets cut. Now, the reason that's relevant is because Baker Mayfield started the first preseason game, which means very little, but completely outplayed what Darnold did.
Baker Mayfield is 100% the starter there.
Absolutely. I think so as well. They're trying to make it an open competition because it keeps value in Darnold, but he's done there, I believe. As long as Baker is fit,
He'll
he's
just be a backup there.
Yeah. He's every bit the better player. Okay, so moving on. The Lions cornerback, Jeff Okudah, is back on the field after last season's Achilles tear. And for a team looking to double their win total, his presence is huge. Don't forget he was the third selection overall in the 2020 draft. And coupled with Aiden Hutchinson, who's also looked really positive in camp and preseason, this defence starts to look really quite good if the offense can be functional. And the O-line has improved. Jared Goff was not running for his life, which is when he plays best. Don't forget at the Rams, he got to the Super Bowl by being protected and standing in the pocket. He has no pocket awareness. He's terrible. He's never going to be any good at that. But he can throw the ball and he can pick out a player. So, and I know Gary doesn't appreciate the Lions' love, and I get it, and I haven't watched Hard Knocks yet because I like to build them up and watch them in one go. But they won 3 games last year. Any takers for 6 games this year? 6 wins.
No.
I think they could.
I think they could as well. John and I are on the 6th game.
No, they're the Lions.
Yeah.
They've been shit for 30 years.
But
They have, haven't they? At least 30 years.
Stafford took them to 3 playoff appearances.
And after that and before that?
Oh, no, nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
Their last
ever.
playoffs was like 1990. Yeah.
That's my point, yeah?
Yeah.
So
I'm not saying they're getting the fucking playoffs. I'm saying they could win 6 games.
I think that's a big step for them.
I don't think it is. I think you can... Bearing in mind, how many games was it? 7 games they lost by 1 score last year. Like,
but
luck going the other way and a slight
garbage time
improvement.
scores, all that kind of rubbish. I don't know. Like, I think their offense needs still quite a lot of work.
Yeah, I really like St. Brown.
Yeah, you've got Swift, if he can stay fit.
If he can stay fit. And I don't dislike Goff. I think he's the right player for these circumstances. If you can't get one of the top 2 or 3 picks and then be brilliant straight away, you might as well go with a guy that's been there and seen it and knows his limitations. Like, nobody's picking him in fantasy, which we'll get to later. Like, that's not a thing, but it's a bit like Alex Smith. Alex Smith was this kind of player. Keep me upright. I won't elevate your team, but I'll eliminate the mistakes. If Goff eliminates his mistakes, the team is better. And I really want to see him get another chance. I think Dan Campbell believes in him, and I believe in Dan Campbell. I really like what I've seen out of him, even though he is just a cheerleader. I get it, but I really like it, and I want the Lions to do well this year. I thought they were really unlucky last year.
If as well, DJ Shark, if he can you can keep him fit. He was fantastic with fucking balls. Like, Goff is better than him. So let's see what can
Anything
happen.
to say on that, Gary?
I'm just uninspired. Like, I do think a lot of it's just hype.
Yeah.
The results tell us they're still not very good. And to expect that they've moved that far, I get that some of the games were close. But like I say, sometimes they're scoring points in the 4th quarter to make those games close. And like, it's very nice for everyone to like support the Lions because the coach seems like a nice guy you'd go and have a beer with. But
you don't want to bear with him. You'd do a line of fucking coke.
but my point is, the stats tell me that they're still not very good. And yes, they will have improved. But I just don't see it.
I'm going to say now, you don't have to be a very good team to win 6 games.
I agree. With there being a 17-game season, I think you can luck into 2 or 3 wins. This is my point. I think they lucked out of 2 or 3.
I'm not going to say they're a good team,
No.
but I can say you don't I'm trying to think of some bad teams, but the Vikings last year were shit.
They weren't good. Yeah.
Kirk Cousins was playing out of his skin. To be fair to him, whatever. They're not a good team. The Falcons are a fucking
they
abortion.
won 6 games.
They won 7 games.
Yeah, 7 games.
So
and we saw them live, and they were bad. Like we felt we could get game time on that team.
So how bad were the Lions then? When
well, that's it. I mean, they started the season awfully, and
but they weren't any worse than the Falcons. They were just unlucky.
That's it.
And they didn't have Cordero Patterson. If they'd have had DeAndre Swift all season,
well, they weren't unlucky then if they didn't have Cordero Patterson. If Cordero Patterson was a free
but
agent,
they were unlucky not to have DeAndre Swift, who had the same impact when he was fit, which I think is fair. That's a fair assessment.
And and I haven't watched Hard Knocks either, but from what I've heard, it's the best one since the
Rams.
Jets.
I like the Rams.
2010.
Rex Ryan Jets
Oh,
when
that was
Darrell
a good
Revis held out.
I like the Rams one when they moved.
Yes.
They literally moved. It was the season they moved, and that was good.
Yeah,
With our favourite coach.
I recently, because I'm a sad old man, rewatched the original 2002 Cowboys Hard Knocks. I suggest you go and watch it. The world was a very different place 20 years ago. There's a whole section each week dedicated to the cheerleaders, and the woman there just tells them they're all too fat every week. And you're like, oh, these women are tiny.
But didn't they get a series out of that? I think they made the
Cowgirls.
The Cowgirls. It's
fucking brutal. Oh man, it's rough. You cannot believe how different the world was 20 years ago.
And I watched an episode and let's say if I took one of these women home. That's ridiculous, but that's it.
That is the funniest thing I've ever heard. If you took any woman home, that would be a start.
But if you took one of these women home,
and if you took a woman home, your dad would probably pinch her.
But that's it. My dad would go, God, marry her. And there's this woman calling him fat. You can't dance.
No,
I
would definitely give Big John better odds.
But yeah, no, it's incredible.
I'm going to round this up and move on, but do go and watch it. It was brilliant.
Absolutely, yeah.
Kenny Pickett showed some good things in his first action. Thank you. Demonstrating that he's closer to Trubisky than many of the reports suggested, and also to Mason Rudolph, who's apparently been brilliant in camp, which is fine.
It's camp.
Of course it is. So, what I want to know is this a repeat of the Glennon Trubisky scenario, which is my new favourite band name, by the way, from a few years ago, when Trubisky was drafted number 3 overall, number 2 overall, and then after 2.5 games, Mike Glennon, who'd been paid $18 million, was hoiked out of the starting lineup and never seen again till he got to the Giants. Is it going to be the same thing? Does Trubisky find himself on a very short leash now?
Nah. That was the Bears. This is the Steelers. This is a well-run organisation. Unless Trubisky comes in and shits the bed.
Which is possible.
But I also don't think he's going to be bad enough. As well, however bad he might be, he's going to be rescued by a stellar defence. He's got
brilliant wide receiver core.
Najee Harris. There's players around him that will help him.
I think Mike Tomlin wants Kenny Pickett to sit for the season and learn Pat Mahomes style.
So do I, but I think that he is slightly more ready than they thought he would be.
Yes,
and obviously, because he's been playing in that stadium,
there is
a lot of external pressure around Pickett. Like, the crowd are going crazy for him. And that, Mitch Trubisky, I've defended Mitch Trubisky. I don't think he's a terrible quarterback at all.
No, neither do I.
And I think he can definitely do a job. I think he's not dissimilar to Jimmy G, actually, if I'm honest. I think, in terms of their capability, their ceilings, I think they're pretty close. And Trubisky, I think if you put him in that Steelers team, he will deliver you what they want, which is to get to the playoffs. I think Trubisky will take them to the playoffs.
Mike Tomlin wanted a mobile quarterback after 3 or 4 years of being rooted to the spot, and Trubisky is that. So I agree. I think they're a 6 or 7 seed.
But if Trubisky has a bad first 4 games, then the pressure becomes too much when the crowd believe you've got this talent on the bench. So Trubisky, if he's going to keep that job, then he needs to have a good start to the season. They've got
to be like 2-2, haven't they, to start the season?
I think 3-1 probably.
You reckon?
Yeah.
I don't know what their schedule is, but
it's a tough division now. It might be a tough division, depends on who's quarterback in the Browns. But the Bengals were good, weren't they? So if you get off to a slow start, that division gets tricky.
I'm just looking up their schedule now just to see.
There'll be a divisional game in the first couple of weeks.
Yeah, and that's the problem.
Well, Bengals to start with.
There you
then
go.
the Pats, then the Browns, then the Jets, Bills, Bucks, Dolphins, Eagles, Saints, Bengals, Colts.
If it was anyone other than the Steelers, you could see that being 1-5.
But it's the Steelers.
It's the Steelers, and you believe in Tomlin. Because Tomlin is the most underrated coach in the NFL. He is nothing but a winner.
They might give him 6 games, and if he's 4-2, keep going.
Yeah.
And if you're 3-3, or then you go, right, well, we're going to give Kenny a go.
I agree. I can absolutely see it happening.
Until someone whacks him, and then everyone just goes, who killed Kenny?
I mean, you're going to get a hood up and everything before you do that line again.
It's not going to be a Glennon situation. They're going to give Trubisky time to shit the bed rather than.
I love that. I love that that's still doing the rounds.
I hate that.
I know. We might have to come up with a new phrase.
It's only because I was listening to a Shaquille Leonard interview. No, it wasn't. DeForest Buckner. It was on about. They asked him, why didn't the Colts make the playoffs last year? And he just went, well, we shit the bed, didn't we?
What has happened to DeForest Buckner, though? Because he is not the player he was last season.
That is a big question. Scheme? Maybe just not being used the right way?
Like, literally a monster in the 49ers. And last year he was good.
He's good.
But he was not... He was nowhere near as good as he was at the Niners.
Well, he's...
Don't forget the players around him are different.
Yeah.
The scheme is different. The play calling is different. It takes time to settle in. I think he'd be better this season. I really do. I think they need him to be. I think that defence is going to need to...
That defence did not do as well as it should have done last
No,
season.
it really didn't. Carson Wentz got a lot of the blame, and rightly so, because it was his fault in the end.
He's useless.
Yeah, and we will cover that plenty this season, I'm sure.
I don't think we will, because I think it'll be done by week 5.
Well, let me tell you why I think, because I'm going to cover it in a second as well. Look, beyond Kenny Pickett, other rookie quarterbacks making positive impacts this week were Desmond Ridder at the Falcons, and Malik Willis at the Tetons, unless you listen to Mike Vrabel, who said he wasn't throwing the ball enough. Basically, Malik Willis, every time he got the ball, just tucked it and ran. Now, he was brilliant at that in college, but Vrabel was telling him he needed to pass, and he just wouldn't let the ball go. So he got admonished by the coach, but man, did he look quick when he got going.
Well, he's got no veteran quarterback teaching him how to throw, has he? Because Tannehill basically said, it's not my job.
Yeah, pretty much.
So he's not going to get any advice.
Tannehill knows he's under threat. However, I don't think he's under threat this season. Tannehill's clearly the best option. And again, he got slated last year.
He had one bad game.
Yeah, he had one bad game and 2 or 3 average games.
He was average.
He wasn't as good as the year before.
That's the thing, though, isn't it? If you set yourself a new level and then you drop from that level, then you're not playing very well, are you?
We're not playing up to your potential.
Yeah. So then people can say you're not delivering.
But he can come back this season.
His team was the number 1 seed.
Yeah, this is
without Derrick Henry, without
AJ Brown for a few weeks.
Yeah, he was throwing to a board. Julio.
There was you there.
I mean, might as well have been.
Catch radius.
Their defense improved a lot last season.
That's it.
It did. It did.
He had, even in the game he was awful. He wasn't bad. He started off with
he was bad in the playoffs.
He started off with a pick and ended with a pick in the playoffs. But between that, he was Ryan Tannehill.
His ceiling is limited because he's Ryan Tannehill, and he had outperformed that ceiling the year before, and he'll probably get close to that again this season. Now he's under pressure. Malik Willis is one for the future, but he's going to be more of a Lamar Jackson player. I really think that.
Getting Henry back and Traylon Burks as well will help Tannehill because
of course
he's got he had no one to throw to.
Well, they just knew what was coming.
If AJ Brown weren't there, it was just rubbish.
With regards to Desmond Ridder, now this is my rookie quarterback that I really like. This is the one for me. I think
even against your
look now. I'm a massive Marcus Mariota fan, as we know, which has been bad for the last few years, and I think he gets 6 games. And if they are not 3-3, I think Mariota's done. Like, I think a lot of expected of him, and they won't sit and wait and see because they need to know if Desmond Ridder is the talented one, or are they picking another high quarterback next year?
I think for the majority of people, very little is expected out of Marcus Mariota.
I think
if he was good enough, he would have been a starter for way longer. Just because he did one stupid thing where he threw the ball to himself. The rest of the time, he was pony. I'm sorry.
It was fine.
The problem with him was he didn't kick on. Like, he maxed out very early and then just regressed.
Well, he was always injured as well. It doesn't help.
It also doesn't help. And this is why I think Ridder's going to get seen very early this season. And he may struggle to depose him.
There's loads of quarterbacks out there that have had, a good 4, 5, 6 game spell. And you go, oh, they could be really good. Gardner Minshew. did play well for a few games. I know John hated him.
Yeah.
I hate the
Minshew
Mania thing,
But-
but actually he's a good player.
But yeah, he played okay, didn't he, for a while? Nick Foles has played well for like 3 games in his career and made $100 million. But
On a Super Bowl.
and a Super Bowl MVP. But you see him in streaks and you go, wow, I can get on board with that. But then it's about consistency. Brady,
Yeah. Consistent.
has been consistent his entire career. Like, play the alarm, use his fucking name. But like,
Don't mention him retiring, so that's fine.
yeah, he should fucking retire. Especially if he can't keep Giselle happy. So is that the reason? We don't know.
We don't know why he's not there.
Is it because he's not in Miami?
Wow.
Well, Falcons start with Saints and the Rams, then Seahawks, Browns, Bucks, and 49ers.
The first 4 games aren't too bad, actually.
First 4 games. I mean,
Saints are in the
Rams.
change.
But they could be
Rams.
3 and 3.
Yeah.
They could be. A lot of it, like you say, is going to depend on whether Mariota stays fit. And that has been a massive bugbear for him. And I just think if Ridder comes in and is halfway decent, Mariota's really going to struggle to depose him. And Arthur Smith wanted Mariota. He'd been his play caller before. But Desmond Ridder has so much potential that Mariota has never displayed. Now, I really like him. I'm going to go down with his ship like I did with Fitztragic. It's going to be the same. But you can't... Desmond Ridder is the one I'm putting my flag on. He's the next big thing for me. I think he's going to be really good.
Yeah. Drake London's injured, isn't he?
He's due back.
He's due back.
Start of the season. So
but,
he's going to have missed a lot of time.
So that doesn't help a Falcons offense, which is already missing.
Does it not just depend on who's best friends with Kyle Pitts because there's nobody else to throw the ball to?
Pretty much.
So, if I was those quarterbacks, I'd just be like, oh.
Does
I'll
Kyle
take
Pitts
you to dinner, Kyle.
Does Kyle Pitts take the big leap that they need him to take?
He played well last season.
Oh, he
for a
did.
rookie.
He did.
One touchdown though.
Yeah.
Yeah, but who else are you going to mark?
In all fairness, all of their red zone possessions went through Cordell Patterson.
Yeah.
and it needs to probably be the same again for them to be successful. Romeo Doubs had a 29-yard touchdown from Jordan Love and has announced himself as a candidate to be Aaron Rodgers' number 1 receiver in Green Bay. Is he standing out from the pack? Good joke. And will it be enough? There's 169 targets to be found after Devontae Adams left. And somebody has to absorb them. Romeo Doubs, for me, could be massive. He's got to be better than Alan Lazard, right?
Do you know what? I saw a stat about Devontae Adams and Mike Evans. And Mike Evans, consistency-wise, is actually better.
Right.
He's had 8,000-yard seasons.
Yeah.
Devontae Adams had 3, but
Right.
his 3 have been
Massive,
1,700 yards or whatever. But they were drafted very close to each other in the same draft as well. So it's interesting.
Adams has got more touchdowns, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think he probably has.
Quite
but
a lot.
Yeah,
He also has more time on the sidelines.
yeah. So
Right.
it will be interesting to see. I think every time we just go, who's he going to trust? Who's he going to trust? But it is Aaron Rodgers. And
Yeah,
I know
that's it.
I just
I know
feel
he became a bit gun shy at the end of last season, but
I feel Dobbs is a good chance to excel in this. If he can be trusted straight away, I really think this is a route they're going to go down. Because Alan Lazard, we know what he is. He's extremely limited as a player.
I think Watson's off the pup list now, isn't he?
Yes.
So that adds another ingredient into it. But yeah.
do you think the Packers are going to do okay this season? I know we're not doing predictions.
I think
I think they're weaker than last season.
I absolutely think they're weaker than last season. However, I think the division as a whole is weaker than last season. The Bears are far worse. The Lions are only marginally better.
A minute ago, the Lions are going to...
No, they're only marginally better than they were. And the Vikings have got a new head coach.
Yeah.
So
they can't be as bad as they were last year.
They can't be as bad, but is it going to be a big jump? So the gap between the Packers and the Vikings might have closed.
I don't think it has.
But
They've not got much better.
Yeah, but the Vikings had pieces. They just didn't perform last season.
Mike Zimmer's message had got old. It was a year too late to move on from Zimmer.
Yeah.
Now, like I say, I think they'll be closer, but I think the Packers are still...
They'll win the division.
Yeah.
But, Aaron Rodgers isn't about winning divisions, is he?
No.
He's about losing championship games to the 49ers. But, that's for you, Dunk. But the whole point of everything he's doing is about Aaron Rodgers winning another Super Bowl. And I don't know, I feel less confident.
Who believes Aaron Rodgers is winning another Super Bowl? Really?
Last year, I think quite a few, even if you guys thought the Packers had a great chance. But this year, less of you are sat here saying they've got a great chance.
No, I don't think so.
I thought they'd get to where they're going to get. I thought they were going to be another 13-3 season, and they'd lose to whoever ran at them in the playoffs, and that's what happened. There is a bit more intrigue about them this year because there's he doesn't have his safety blanket. Tonyan's back, that will help.
Which is massive, yeah, absolutely.
Still got Cobb as well, isn't he?
Still got his mate
Still
Cobb.
there, yeah. I mean,
he played all right at the end of last season.
he actually did okay. Like, he's fine as a third receiver, a good third receiver, but it's the other two slots that you've got to work it out. Now, we're going to touch on it briefly because it's in the news, and then we're going to move on because we don't like him. But Deshaun Watson actually apologised for being an arsehole.
Did you watch it?
I did. I have watched it back. It was to the point. It didn't feel overly sincere. It felt like it had been written for him, and this was something that they'd been waiting to put out there to say, look, he's apologised.
Managed.
But he's done it, and now we wait and see. There's no further news on the league's appeal of the suspension, so at the moment it's still 6 games. Nobody believes it's going to be 6 games. It's going to be closer to the end of the season, as we've discussed. But Jacoby Brissett took a lot of snaps, and he's leading the ones in camp because they know 6 games is the minimum now.
Yeah, even if it isn't, he is playing the first 6 games. Get him up to speed because as well, you've not supplied him with many weapons.
No, it's a struggle. Moving from the Browns, but in news that relates to a former Browns player, Carl Nassib, the NFL's first openly gay player, returning to the Bucks. They've signed him on a 1-year deal. Basically, they're still trying to replace JPP, and they need rotational players. This is a good move. Carl Nassib is a more than capable rotational player. You could start him.
I thought it was right, Carl Nassib.
Yeah, I've
good
always
player.
liked Carl Nassib.
Less of a good player, but with a noteworthy name.
JJ Arthego-Whiteside.
That's him, JJ Arthego-Whiteside. Moving from...
Arthego-Whiteside.
Arcega.
Yeah, so he's been traded.
Arscar.
He's been traded. Now, does anybody want to tell me what they think his stats for his first 3 seasons in the NFL are? I've got them written down.
In terms of what kind of stats you have to... I'm going to say...
yards and touchdowns.
I'm going to say over the 3 seasons, 600 yards and 4 touchdowns.
Oh, you'd be so wrong. He's less than 300 yards and 1 touchdown, which was in his first season.
I remember him scoring because I think it was against the Giants as well. Because it shouldn't have fucking counted. But
last season, he played in 16 games. You want to tell me how many receptions he had in 16 games?
8.
14.
2. He only has 2 more receptions than I did, and I didn't play in any games last year.
Fucking hell.
He's gone to the Seahawks. He's going to be a rotational player for Geno Smith. Look,
He's not just a blocker, a run blocker.
Yeah, he was trained to be a tight end, so he's now going to be the big guy that they can throw on if they want to run the ball, which we all know Pete Carroll wants to do.
Just put him in the slot.
But what a waste of a talent!
Yeah,
what a waste of a talent because
Clearly
in college
he has no talent.
No, in college he was awesome, and it's just never translated across. What was he, a 2nd round pick in 2019? Like, he's a quality player, but it's just not come through at all.
Some people are just quality prospects.
Did Paul pick him in the draft?
before his time.
Yeah, well, no,
haven't they swapped him for an edge rusher?
No, cornerback.
Cornerback. Okay, that's fine.
Amadi, I think.
Yeah. I was about to say, the one thing the Eagles don't need is another defensive lineman edge rusher.
They don't need any other wide receivers.
Ugo Amadi is going the other way.
The Eagles have got good wide receivers and a quarterback that won't throw it to them. As much as I like Jalen Hurts, he still won't throw it as much as... Because they have got good wide receivers. If Rager turns up, they could be very good.
Yeah, I think the Eagles will be.
Because they picked up another one this year, didn't they, as well?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they need Rager to turn up. Smith, Brown, and Goddard, that's fine.
Ugo Amadi, 47 games with 12 starts, 1 interception, 54 tackles.
Just bodies. But they're getting a really deep squad. It's bizarre.
We need to talk about the Browns again, having just glazed over them, only because they lost their starting centre, Harris, been put on IR today for the season, done. After they lost their other starting centre in camp this week, Deaton, done. And they've not tried to re-sign last year's starting centre, JC Tretter, who apparently is not interested in returning to a terrible team. So they currently have no centre on the roster, which is not good for Jacoby Brissett or Deshaun Watson or anyone else who might be starting under centre. It keeps getting worse for the Browns, and Stefanski's position, I mean, I'm not sure he's happy anyway. And if they only win 6 or 7 games, I know he was coach of the year, like year before last, but come on now, like this is not a well-run franchise. Would you be surprised if they booted him?
Nope.
Well, it would be horrifically stupid if they did that.
Of course it would.
Because when you look at pure talent, they have got a very good roster. And they've still got plenty of cap space at the moment. Well, they did have until they signed Deshaun Watson, I suppose. But, yeah, they've got no better opportunity than over the next 2 or 3 years to actually do something with that franchise if they manage to fuck it up, which they probably will. But then, it would just be very frustrating to watch.
Yeah.
It's a shame that they've signed Deshaun Watson because I think most people were starting to get on board that it'd be quite interesting and fun to watch the Browns do okay.
They were everyone's second team, weren't they, for a while?
And then they went and got Deshaun Watson and everyone's like, fucking Browns.
Who's the guy around the NFL who's a Browns fan who's now scouting for new teams because he's like...
Mark Sessler.
Yeah, he's like...
He just doesn't feel comfortable supporting him anymore.
So, like, he's
Deshaun Watson still sits in my dynasty team.
Well, this is the thing. We'll get to that in fantasy, don't worry. James White has retired.
Yes.
Double Super Bowl winner, scored the winning touchdown.
Walk-off touchdown.
Only walk-off touchdown.
Only walk-off touchdown in Super Bowl history. Look, he's a bit part player on an amazing team. Right, this is the thing. But what a bit part. Not great as a rusher, because that's not what he was there for. But as a receiver out of the backfield in his 8 seasons, 3,278 receiving yards as a running back with 25 touchdowns. Like, what a weapon that guy has been. The yardage he's picked up on third downs and things like this, like I say, in the Super Bowl, amazing. It's going to be sorely missed. Like, this is not good news for New England, a team that's already struggling to get their offense running.
I think Patriot fans love him for those reasons that you just said. Other people kind of like, I don't know, I was always, like for fantasy, for example, which we will come on to, he was an absolute nightmare for fantasy. Yeah. You'd think, he should be quite good. He's their number one running back. And then he didn't run the ball, and you'd just be like, man, will you just tuck the ball and run? So, like, I think he's
tricky.
The Super Bowls obviously push his value up, don't they, in terms of what he's achieved in the game, especially when you deliver in a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But sometimes I think he was a little overrated in his career.
I think he was just perfectly rated. He was
he fit the system.
A cog in a system that needed a player like him. He had the perfect skill set for what was required. And the thing, I think it's fine. I don't think you're going to miss him because they'll use Andre Steele, Stevenson, Harris, whatever.
Here's the thing. James White is the reason that Giovanni Bernard was taken from the Bengals to the Bucs because Brady wanted a James White player. Now, Bernard got injured. It didn't really work out, but he has had the odd game where it's been exactly the same, like all of a sudden he's the passing down back. And we touched on this last week. No one remembered that Amir Abdullah was still alive. But apparently, Josh McDaniels wants a James White, and he's decided that it's Amir Abdullah. He doesn't want Josh Jacobs doing the pass catching. He wants Amir Abdullah. Now, that's a big thing because that shows you how he was being used, and then the other teams want to try and fit that in. We see this success trickles down to other teams. So maybe he is considered higher than he perhaps deserves to be for his talent, but it spreads amongst the league, and people want to use that concept. And we might see Amir Abdullah catching like 40 passes this season and 8 touchdowns or something out of nowhere.
If he wouldn't have retired, James White was bound to end up at like Rex Burkhead at the Texans or somewhere where you forget he's there. But he retired.
I don't think it's a new thing though, is it? Having like a running back and then a catching back. So if you take the Chargers, you had Melvin Gordon and Eckler. So Eckler was the catching back for a good 2 seasons whilst they played together. Then they didn't want to pay Melvin Gordon because he was running all the time and getting his knees bashed up. So then they went with Eckler. So, and you see it quite a lot. If you can get a catching back and a very strong running back, then that's, I think that's been, whether James White was the person that started that, I don't know.
No, he didn't. He didn't. He's been one of the most successful ones at doing it because of the way Brady liked to play.
Yeah.
And it
actually,
worked.
you did it without a major running back next to him.
Yeah.
Because Melvin Gordon and Austin Eckler, that's a...
A lot of his success came with LeGarrette Blount running the ball. So he was there, but
Sonny Michel.
But a lot of the time it was James White,
Yeah.
and we just didn't run the ball. They're going to go back to running the ball now, I think.
Yeah.
Before we move to the second half of this evening, one more rookie quarterback I want to mention just to keep an eye on. Then we'll move on. Sam Howell. Anyone aware of 5th round pick Sam Howell?
Is he the one that was famously immobile? I'm trying to think of...
No, I don't know if he was famously immobile, but he came out of North Carolina having set single-season touchdown records, passing yards, and touchdown passes for that particular college. And he was picked up by the Commanders. Now, he currently sits at 3 on the depth chart behind Carson Wentz and Tyler Heineke. I've heard this podcast's opinion in the past about Tyler Heineke. We don't have to go back there. And I know even from today, this podcast's opinion on Carson Wentz. Sam Howell, just take note, because I think you're going to see him this season. Wentz doesn't stay fit. Heineke doesn't necessarily stay fit or ignite the imagination for more than 2 or 3 games at a time. Sam Howell has a chance to be the future of the Commanders.
Well, I think they'll sign somebody. A Darnold,
You reckon?
Jimmy G.
I don't think you can.
I don't think they will. You've
You're
got Wentz and...
You're paying Wentz
A lot
40
of
million.
money,
Yeah,
40 million
I don't
quid.
think they will. I think Sam Howell could be starting by the end of the season.
Well, I think...
Because I have no faith in Wentz. I like Heineke, but I understand the limitations. So why not try this guy? I think he's got real chance to be a
That
starter.
franchise is bad. Like, they're just...
Terrible. Anybody got anything else for the first half before I adjourn? I'm going to take silence as a no. See you after the break. Welcome back, everyone. It's time to talk fantasy. No, not the one where Paul is covered in chocolate and surrounded by hungry members of the Spice Girls. And no, not the one where Jim has slipped, fallen on a Hoover, and the only medical attention available must be supplied by Russian female athletes from the 80s. I'm talking actual fantasy football. Gary and John, this is far from my territory. So take me through how to build a team and not finish last like I do in every other season. I might actually pay attention because that'd be less embarrassing. Talk to me about how and when to pick a fantasy quarterback. I am bad at this.
Not first. So...
Well, thank you. Thank you for that.
Because I'm in my work league. My work league drafts tomorrow. And I can tell you now that the first 4 picks will be quarterbacks. And I'm not going to lie, I dominate that league every year.
You're the only one there that knows what the NFL is.
Possibly. It's a 14-team league. It's fucking hard by the end of the draft. Well, it should be, but I'm still like, you're able to pick up like...
Fournette in the...
Yeah. One year, I am back when he was still good. I picked up Todd Gurley in like the 5th round. I just kept watching it, dropping, and thinking, well, someone else is going to pick him. What don't I know? And yeah.
Why did you let him drop to the 5th round?
It became an experiment. I had so many running backs, but yeah, I think you need to fill your skill. Obviously, your skill positions first, but there is a premium on elite running backs, and I would be filling my elite wide receivers before you fill your quarterback. There's difference though. There's a couple now of quarterbacks who, when they're on, just create so many points. Effectively, they are. A quarterback used to get you 15 to 20 points. Now, Lamar Jackson on a good day, Patrick Mahomes, back when he wasn't such a horrible cunt, Deshaun Watson, they can get you 40 points.
So when you look, your quarterbacks over a course of a season will still score you the most points in your team.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, traditionally, I'd say about 5 years ago, you were looking at probably around the 6th round when you'd start to see a quarterback go. Yeah. But like John touched on, especially dual threat quarterbacks.
Have you been touching?
No one.
So dual threat quarterbacks who run as well as who pass, especially those that run for touchdowns. They're the ones that tend to move earlier in the market now. So what you normally see is rounds 1 to 3 should be running back and wide receiver. Depending on where you sit in your draft order, sometimes the best You'll go 2 wide receivers. Sometimes you'll go 2 running backs. Now, for me, since most leagues have moved to PPR, then that has put an increase on the value of wide receivers. So traditionally, I would always have gone with 2 running backs and then 1 wide receiver in my first 3 picks. Now, I don't think that's the right way to do it. Way more teams use running back as a committee. They get injured more often. Now, I would always probably say now you should be looking to get an elite running back, such as Aaron Jones, and then
number 22 overall average draft
2
position.
high-quality wide receivers. Now, running backs, when you look at the average draft position, still go really high because if you've got 1 main running back, you've got a lead running back, say you've got 2 lead running backs, you're going to get a lot of action out of them. And what you normally see is Mahomes tends to still be the first quarterback that goes off the board, normally at the end of the 3rd round or the start of the 4th round, because at that point the top of both wide receiver and running back are gone, and then you've only got 2, I would say, tight ends that go into that mix. So you've got Kelsey and Kittle, who are as valuable as a top wide receiver. So they go kind of around there.
And Darren Waller.
Yeah, Waller's high as well. You know.
Mark Andrews, tight end too.
Yeah, but I think, like I say, I think quarterback, really, you're kind of looking. So if you get to round 4, the middle of round 4, and you've got Mahomes there, I don't think Lamar Jackson's actually consistent enough. Jalen Hurts was very big last year for a lot of people as well because he runs the ball so much. But if you've got such as, you might have a choice in the 4th round of a elite tight end or an elite quarterback. Then what you find is the next level below are the likes of Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, etc. And they tend to go kind of 6th, 7th round when people are going, well, I can't really find much value at wide receiver, so I'm going to take one of the best. But the thing is, with quarterback, obviously there's 32 teams that have all got to have a starting quarterback. If you're in a 10-league team, you can always, I often pick up Matt Stafford right down the bottom of the draft because he's just there. Matt Ryan was another one I used to just pick up. And I'd just pick up one of those kind of veterans that might have a hot season, and I know they score touchdowns. So then you just plug them in for bye weeks, or if the other player, you're not happy with the defence they're going up against, you can always get 2 good quarterbacks, even if you don't pick one early. So for me, end of the 3rd, into the 4th, but only if you don't like what's there at running back and wide receiver.
So the highest drafted quarterback by average draft position is Josh Allen at the moment.
Yeah.
Followed by Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott. They're the top 8.
Yeah.
Anyone you think is missing from the top 8 at the moment, as read there?
Was Tom Brady in it?
Nope.
Yeah. See, I took Brady last year, and he did me a great job. So if
Aaron
Brady
Rodgers
plays,
is not there.
Yeah. It's because they're not, like I say, dual threat.
They're not dual threat. But would you not take Aaron Rodgers over Dak Prescott?
Well,
Bearing in mind the
but
Cowboys receiver
he's
issues.
a Cowboys player, so Cowboys fans will be skewing that ADP.
True.
And like I say, I took Brady for the first time in my fantasy career last year, and I won the league. So
I would be taking Brady this year, though.
no, maybe not this year, but when you look at the pieces around them, Brady last year, Mike Evans, etc., Chris Godwin, Gronk. Brady was going to score you points. He might not run it in, but he does run in touchdowns, and he does quarterback
Derek
sneaks
Carr,
and stuff.
I think I'd take a flyer on Derek Carr this year.
See, I had Derek Carr for portions of last year. Now, I didn't always get it right when I played him, and that was a problem. But when I played him and it was right, he was one of the best scorers I had.
Yeah.
So it's matchup based for a lot of the middle tier quarterbacks.
I think if you can get him, Herbert might be the one this year.
You could well be right. Okay, so following on from that then, let's discuss rookies who we're looking for in 2022. And for keeper leagues, the rookies that we might think next year and onwards is the place for them. But pick up 2 or 3 of the rookies. Tell me why I should be drafting them, where I should be drafting them.
If you're like, I'm big on Kenneth Walker. If Ken Walker the third, if he is
Sounds
as
like
good,
a radio presenter, doesn't
doesn't
he?
he just?
Ken Walker the third.
Yeah, drive time. I think if he can be as good as his promise, the thing is, I don't trust the Seahawks, but I think he could be huge. What you might get is, for some reason, that people People are doubting Chris Olave because he's only received one pass in pre-season. Because what the fuck does that mean? But I think I was big on him. I'm big on Sky Moore going into Kansas. There's talent in places. You've got to judge for people who can go in there and now. So like Drake London, he's coming in injured. He's got Mariota at quarterback. Gives me chills.
Chills, yeah.
Same with Traylon Burks. He's not injured, but he's coming into a Tennessee offense which is stuttered, and you know that what they really want to do.
This is why I picked out Romeo Doubs earlier, because he's going in somewhere where you've got one of the best quarterbacks of all time who needs to distribute 169 targets.
So what I would say is, when I look at rookies, I look at whether they're going to slot straight in to a lot of workload. Because they're going to make mistakes as rookies.
Yeah.
So when I look at the running backs, you look at them and you go, right, well, is Breece Hall going to be the number one running back for the Jets?
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
So
it's highly likely.
So you're going to start putting him in your top 20, 25 running backs?
Yeah.
In the league,
I think so. Yeah.
So he could, depending on how that plays out, could go 4th round, couldn't he? Yeah.
We know there are O-line problems at the Jets, though.
Exactly.
So do we worry about that, or do we take the player and assume the work?
If it's going to be like a running back, volume's important as well, because if they get a lot of touches, it does matter. And if they've got a rookie quarterback, they're going to need to run the ball a lot. That also matters.
If they've got a rookie quarterback who's injured and they've got a decrepit quarterback coming in, that would be he could have a huge start.
Yeah.
I think the best rookie is not on your list.
What, on my list?
Not on my list. Go on.
Yeah, because he hasn't played yet.
Who's that?
Etienne.
Now, I agree.
He's not a rookie.
He's not a rookie because he was drafted the year before. However,
basically a rookie.
he's never started a game. So, to Gary's point, I actually agree. I think Travis Etienne, from the little I know about fantasy, is going to be amazing. Yeah. Harking back to what we were saying earlier, he's going to have the James White role plus some running.
Yeah.
And I think he's going to be on the field more or less every down.
Yeah.
So I would be big on Etienne, Breece Hall. I think Olave, because we don't know what Michael Thomas is going to do, and there's nobody else to throw to. They would be the ones I would be really keen on.
I want to talk
maybe Sky Moore a little bit as well, actually, because he's still
that's what John said.
Yeah, he's still playing with Mahomes,
and Pickens,
I think will be good. Damon Pierce at Houston. Now their number one running back at the moment, I think, is Rex Burkhead.
Yes.
You're talking about volume. This is a team under Lovie Smith that's going to be better organised, if not just better than they were before. They're going to start Davis Mills. There's going to be less disruption about the beginning of this season. I'm not expecting masses out of Davis Mills, but he was good last year. Like we said, he was the second best rookie quarterback last year. I think they might get a lot out of Damon Pierce. I think they're going to look to load him up. So
I'd
for
pick
volume
him up,
racing,
I'd probably pick him up kind of once you've got your flex in place. I wouldn't want him in flex. I don't think I'd trust him.
So he'd be maybe the 4th running back you'd pick up?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. If I would say you're looking at picking him up in the 10th, 11th round of the draft, something like that.
In keeper leagues, he's more. But actually, in regular fantasy leagues, you'll win and lose the league based on your use of rookies. Because when I've won, it's been on my taking a shot effectively on rookies, because you can pick up huge value. I mean, when you picked up Kamara that first year, because I remember you were like, this guy's going to be amazing.
James Conner's first year did well.
Yeah, you pick up these players, you can get incredible value.
Some of them are obvious, like in our
Zeke.
Dynasty League, Najee Harris went like in the top 10, didn't he?
Yeah.
And because we knew again he was going to get volume, he was going to be their number one running back. So I think Etienne will go high this year, and I think you've got to be careful with rookies. Like if you go too big, like even Jamar Chase last season, the first few games he didn't do much, and then he just exploded. So you've got
to tell me which players are best avoided high in the draft. I'm talking first 3 or 4 rounds. Who are you not taking? Name me some actual players. Don't just give me a position. Tell me. Drake London.
I'm not taking him. I'm not. I will stash
this
him.
This isn't just rookies. This is everybody.
Everyone.
You can name rookies or otherwise.
Saquon. I am not taking Saquon high.
You think Saquon's done?
Yes. Like not done. Not like
Done.
Not like a put a fork in me done, but like he's medium to well.
I'd still take Barkley before I take Cam Akers, and their ADP is quite similar. And Cam Akers has proved to be even more fragile than Saquon. He's
how is
currently,
Aaron Jones' ADP below Saquon?
I don't know.
Because a fit Saquon is a better player, but he's only fit for 2 games a season.
He's not.
Yeah, he is.
He is.
He's a much better
That's
player.
based on a very small
Yeah,
sample.
I
He's
agree.
only been fit for a very small sample.
I
of his
agree.
NFL
Yes.
career.
For 2 games a season, he's a better player than
Fit
Jones.
for 2 years.
He was fit for 2 years.
His first season, he
70% of 2 years.
for his first season, he was amazing.
Yeah.
I agree with Gary. I think it's coming to an end.
I wouldn't take David Montgomery that high.
Zeke. I've had Zeke last year, and he flattered to deceive. Pollard ran in pretty close.
All right, well,
I think of the players around, Zeke is the 16th rated running back. Of the players around him, I would take Zeke.
I would take Gibson.
Connor.
I would take Gibson and Etienne over Zeke.
I take Josh Jacobs.
I think Zeke's high.
I don't think Zeke. I don't know. He still gets 1,000 yards.
He does, but so did Pollard. Got 800 yards.
Okay,
you get Pollard way
for
further
instance, though, here's the thing, right? Terry McLaurin, wide receiver 16.
Yeah,
Too high, too low. Bearing in mind who's throwing to
that's
him.
the thing.
down. I think that's about right. Yeah,
That's not what I asked. Too high or too low is what I asked. I don't want you sitting on the fucking fence, do I?
bang right. Yeah,
All right, let's try another one. Darren Waller, tight end 5.
I think that's fine.
You haven't got the hang of this game. Too high, too low. You can't sit on the
No,
fence.
but I think he is.
Pick.
But when we did a fucking.
I would say Darren Waller should be tight end 3. That is what I think he is going to be this year.
I don't think Mark Andrews.
And I'll tell you why. I've even got
Carl
Justin.
Pitts should not be ahead of George Kittle. That's wrong.
No, that's wrong. But here's why I think Darren Waller is too low. Because all the coverage is going to be on Devontae Adams.
Yeah.
Darren Waller is going to be one-on-one. He's going to be a winner. He's going to be a winner. He should be tight end 3 for me.
He's above
Really
Carl
stood out.
Pitts. But yeah, I mean, I
J.K.
fucking love.
Dobbins is too low.
I've got Waller in my
If he's properly fit by week 3 or 4, J.K. Dobbins is too low.
Is he?
Yeah,
I mean, the whole
he's
the whole
below,
point of
below
Baltimore.
Elijah Mitchell.
Here's another one then. Here's another one for you. Antonio Gibson, running back 20. Now, wait. Antonio Gibson has massive fumbling issues so far in camp and preseason, and they're not even sure who the number 1 running back is there anymore. Bear in mind, J.D. McKissick does all the passing downs as well. Is Antonio Gibson, running back 20, a massive gamble, or is it a case of he is the best running back, and if he solves this issue, he will get all the volume that he had last year?
Yeah,
He's a boom or bust player,
Yeah.
Antonio Gibson. Some weeks he'll score you 20 points and win your games, and other weeks he'll score you 6.
Well, I had him a lot last year in both teams, and I won very few games.
but it's not. I don't think it's just down to Gibson, but
You're just shit.
I think
Well, there is that.
I think if you're going on the people around him, I'd take Hall, Etienne, Jacobs, J.K. Dobbins, even Damian Harris in front of him.
You're happy with DeAndre Swift ahead of Nick Chubb? DeAndre Swift running back 8,
No.
Nick Chubb running back 9.
The only reason why that is because DeAndre Swift is a catching running back. And obviously with PPR, that gets you points. So if you can pick the right... That's why Dalvin Cook is so high.
Yeah, I get it, but I would have Nick Chubb ahead of Najee Harris at running back 5.
Here you go. Are there any running backs you think are missing from this list that you think? Well, I mean, especially ahead of Singletree, Pollard, Miles Sanders. Cordell Patterson is 31st. Kareem Hunt 33rd. And James Robinson, is 39th. He's come off a very good year, a slow season, and Etienne looks like he's going to take his thing.
The thing with Kareem Hunt is he's a great person to put on your bench because if Chubb is injured, all of a sudden his value goes up. So that's what you've got to look at with running backs as well.
Yeah.
Are they a great option? So when you look at your bench, sometimes with running back, that's the most important position to cover. So like a lot of the time, you would never take 2 running backs from the same team because if the wrong,
But you used to. It used to be called handcuffing.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the only position you would really do it. So like if you took Zeke, you take Pollard. If you take, it can really help because they just slot straight in.
Another one that that interests me in terms of being too high, too low. And there are many, but you've got Javonte Williams, running back 10.
I think that's too high.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I also think.
Because I still think he'll be committee.
Yeah, it feels...
He has all the talent. And actually, it's not a bad thing for him that they're using him in committee, because it is going to save his knees for future years. But as a fantasy option, I think 10th, one running back, he will go that high because people will take a fly on him.
I assume he's going to be the lead back.
But I wouldn't do it myself.
And then wide receiver 8, Tyreek Hill. Now, Tyreek Hill in himself is wide receiver 1, if you like. But it's Tua thrown to him. Now, there's been some good chemistry in camp, but it's Tua. It's limited. And if it's not Tua, it's Teddy, which is even more limited for arm strength.
Tyreek Hill is still a top 10 wide receiver.
Okay, so you're happy
because of his yards after catch.
Sure, okay,
yeah.
that's fine. I just that's what I mean. I don't know how to do that.
He will get volume there.
Yeah. But does that diminish Jalen Waddle, who is some way down the pack?
Yeah, I don't know. Like for me, there's someone that's a bit low, and it's because he had a bad season last year, and that's Amari Cooper, and you don't know who's going to be thrown to him yet. Because he's
wide receiver 26.
Yeah.
No, I agree that the problem there is the quarterback, and that's what I mean. How much do you
disappointing last year? So like I had Amari Cooper last year, and I was really pleased. With
I had Gallup and Lamb,
and I was just like, what's going on? And like you'd watch every game going, Amari Cooper's over there, you fucking dick. Like why are you throwing it to Michael Gallup? No one gives a shit about Michael Gallup.
All right, looking at the list, pick me one player each that you think will outperform their draft position significantly. I'm going to give you one. You're going to laugh, but I'm going to go for it because I want this to be from left field. Brandon Cooks, wide receiver 23. I think this season he is inside the top 15 in terms of yardage as a wide receiver.
I'm going to pick someone who's not on our list, but I know because I've got the whole thing in front of me. Brandon Ayuk's 41st wide receiver. Ooh. And I think he's much better than that.
Yeah, it's a good shout. I'm going to go Jerry Jeudy. Because he's not even the top Denver. Cortland Sutton's ahead of him, and
they've got a lot of targets to go around. They just lost Tim Patrick as well.
Yeah, so for me, that would be the one, Jerry Jeudy.
All right,
new quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely, and he's going to be quality, and they're going to need to be to keep up in that division. Right, I want to discuss the biggest fantasy bust you've ever drafted. Apart from Justin Forsett, the day you picked him, and he was immediately released from the Ravens.
Well, the thing is,
didn't you have Shady McCoy when he got injured for the season?
No, I had not Hopkins, David Johnson when he played 7 snaps.
I had Shady McCoy. I knew it was one of us.
He broke his wrist, didn't he?
Broke his wrist, never returned. Last year I had McCaffrey in my work league, and it was just awful because he kept thinking.
They kept promising you he was coming back. Yeah,
so you can never drop him. And especially because we in our regular league we don't have injured reserve slots, so you have if you've got a David Johnson and you think, well, I might keep him just in case he's you don't pick David Johnson now, he's a free agent, but if you've got that injured first round pick, you've got to make that decision of whether I keep him
or trade early.
Or trade early, and I still won that year, but it wasn't helped by the fact that I had my first round pick on the bench for 15 games. But I don't know. I think that's the worst decision I've made. I mean, it's not like when Jim picked Alvin Kamara and he was shit for quite that season, apart from the playoffs.
I had Michael Thomas when he got injured and then just sat out. And that was depressing because I spent a lot of capital on him. So I think anyone you take early and they get injured is just disappointing. Amari Cooper last year hurt me quite badly because I think I probably took him in like the second or third round last year, expecting him to be the number one target. Dak was coming back. I was expecting big things, and he just disappointed.
And as well, you don't win it on draft night. You'll get your draft grade, and you'll be like, "Oh, great! I've got an A. I'm due to win 16 games. I'm the fucking king." Or you'll get an F, and you'll go, "Well, you'll be looking to win a game." it doesn't matter. It's especially because like 1 year I got into the playoffs. I had a decent team, but that was the year Beckham decided he was going to have a fight with Josh Norman. I then lost in the semi-finals to Chase, who won the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's picking the right team on the right day, and sometimes if your luck's out, your luck's out. But
So I must be due quite a lot of luck.
I think keeping an eye on who matchups is so important when it comes to fantasy, and matchups late in the season. So I think there's two things people don't look at. One is that, and the other thing is bye weeks and the amount of people that just line up all their wide receivers. There's always a couple of very heavy bye weeks. So when you're picking up your flex
like week
option,
7, 8,
etc.
9.
Yeah, well, 8, 9, 10, I think it normally is. But yeah, like if you end up with 3 or 9, you've just got to drop all those players because you just can't keep them all, or you've got to just sacrifice a game. So yeah, I think it's fantasy is always one of those things. I think mock drafting really helps because you can really. I've done a couple already. Gets your hopes up about who you might get, and then you come and mock draft with everyone that knows what they're talking about, and that can be disappointing. But it does at least give you ideas. Well, I can probably take this person or this person. So you're going to have an idea of the 3 or 4 players you might want to take at each position.
I've had some awful luck at running back when it comes to injuries. I had Dalvin Cook the year he got injured when he started brilliantly, and I was like, racing. Then I had Joe Mixon. Now I've stuck with both of those players, and they've performed well for me since then. But those 2 years, those players killed me. And further back, when we very first started this, and you'll laugh because he's an inconsistent player at best, but he was having a great run. Bilal Powell, when he played for the Jets, suddenly became their number 1 back. And no one had got him, and I picked him up. And the second I picked him up, it's like he had all the worst luck in the world. And he ended up never playing again. He broke his neck and just never came back.
I had that really religious running back from the Bucks. What was his name?
Doug Martin.
Yeah, I spent
muscle
time with
hamster.
Doug Martin 1 year, and he
just didn't play.
Basically just found Jesus and didn't run the ball.
That was it. Yeah, he was good until he found Jesus, and then it all went to people who are low but might be worth. Like, for some reason, Adam Thielen's outside the top 30.
Really?
Yeah.
It's the Jefferson effect, right?
It is the Jefferson effect, but he didn't play a lot.
I had him last year, and he was really good. If you
10
pick him up
touchdowns.
Late, great for your flex position.
Yeah.
Like, 'cause flex, if you can get solid 10 points every week, happy days, and then you can rely on your big guns. Well, because PPR, 10 points isn't that much these days.
No. I still can't find a 10-point player from a flex position. Some weeks I'll be better off playing you in my flex position.
I am flexible.
No, you're not.
Okay.
It's taken you 4 years to admit that Aaron Jones is elite. It's hardly flexible.
So finally then, on the issue of fantasy, you are, 1-7 in your fantasy league. How do you turn that round to finish with a somewhere near winning record in the middle of a fantasy season? What do you do? Are trades worth it? Do you dump stock and just go and pick up some rookies and hope they perform the second half of the year? What do you do?
Well, you're going to have, a high draft pick, aren't you, each week? So you're going to have a high waiver every week, yeah?
Well, it depends. If you've been...
Well, if you're 1-7, you can have a...
Well, but the waivers also dependent on wherever you had a... If you were in the waivers and you were high that week before and you used it, you then go to the back of the waivers.
No, not if you lose again.
But yeah,
you do not for the first player. So you're going to get, if you're the worst in the league every week, you're going to get the first choice at the players. So you've got to look at form and matchups. So how do you get the players that are, and you've got to do it like John's the best at it. John and Chase, they're the best because they watch it on like the day it comes down. So on like a Thursday or whatever it is, they are all over it. Yeah, and they get in early because they also pick up and watch who other people have dropped. Because sometimes people have to drop people that they didn't really want to, and sometimes they just mess up. And you just like Alan dropped some crazy players once. You're just like, what the hell are you doing, Alan?
Yeah,
you just go in, bang, bang, bang. Thanks very much, sorted.
One day, some dickhead dropped the Minnesota Vikings defense because he dropped the phone on his nose. It was him.
I was doing it in bed. I just fell asleep, dropped the phone on my face, and let the Vikings defense go. They were leading the league.
If you've gone past the waivers, you can just pick them up instantly. Yeah. So there's almost 2 times in the week you need to look. One ready for waivers, and then 2 as soon as waivers are over, it's cleared waivers. then you see who's been dropped. At that point, they're all free agents and you can pick them up.
Is it possible to turn around a team that's been so bad in the middle of the season that you can still get in the playoffs?
I would say so. Maybe 1-7 might be a bit too far.
Yeah, fair enough.
But if you say 1-4, you've still got a chance, plenty of chance.
Yeah, no, and as well, I think even if you're 1-7, you can still turn it around and become a disruptor.
Yeah.
And you can have your fun basically knocking other people out the playoffs as well.
The amount of times I've gone... The problem is, if you get off to a real flyer, and I've done this a number of times, you go like 6-1, or whatever, 7-0, and then you start getting a couple of injuries, you're at the bottom of waivers every time. And you have to wait like 3 weeks till you can pick anyone of any worth up. You're just picking up, I don't know, another Jets running back and hoping. It's just... It can be quite painful as well when you just start, just like your season.
It's when you're you're picking fucking Chubba Hubbard again. Oh, for fuck's sake. You're like,
the Fozzie Whittaker.
The Fozzie Whittaker.
Who was the Jets running back who used to just bounce around the league all the time? Was that
Isaiah Crowell?
Isaiah Crowell and Bilal.
Bilal Powell,
yeah.
But yeah,
Jameson Crowder.
In our league, we are trade
shy.
reticent. Yeah, we are trade shy. But actually,
even in Dynasty, nobody trades.
We had a big trade last year.
We did.
And it helped.
Everyone thought John was going to win out of that, and actually you did better out of it than John.
In the Dynasty.
Yeah.
But in the other league, I traded with Jim, and...
Also traded with me.
It was a disaster.
Yeah. You also traded because I picked up Fitzpatrick.
Yes, and I traded for him, and he immediately broke his hip.
Yeah, but you traded me David Harris, who also broke his hip.
It went really well for us.
So it was an absolutely fucking appalling trade.
I think trades are difficult in regular season because I think you're pretty confident with what you've taken in the draft normally, especially in a 10-team league. You should have a decent starting roster in a 10-team league if you know anything about football.
In my work league, trades are much more fluid. I think as well because I care less, but in the nicest possible way, because this is I've been this is my primary leagues are with you guys, but I think as well people do get too attached to their players, and it's not it is sometimes natural, but it's just pixels in a phone. You do not
own them.
Yeah, you don't. Dalvin Cook owes you nothing.
What?
But that's and if I see anyone I know mentioning fantasy on Twitter or anything, they will be banned from the league.
That seems fair. Anything else to add, gentlemen?
No. Enjoy your drafts.
Well,
I'm sure they'll be coming up.
Thank you for the insight. Certainly in the second half of the show, if my fantasy hopes are dashed, I can point the finger at you guys today. There are 2 more pre-season games to be played for each team, and the squads should start to shuffle into shape. You can tell I wrote this for you to write. Next week, we begin our conference previews with the AFC, team by team, looking at who's hot, who's not, and who's shot. I believe we won't have Jim with us next week either, because the lazy bastard's still on holiday.
I sent him a AFC, NFC thing for him to do, and he's filled it in. So I have got his AFC roundup.
Family dedication.
I think he might have done it today.
Well, knowing that he's dedicated makes me want to plough on. Until next week, we've been the Snap UK podcast. It's very late.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Bye.